The air was thick with tension, clinging to the vast halls of the palace like a suffocating veil. The billionaire Sheikh's empire was crumbling beneath his feet, whispers of ruin echoing louder than the desert winds outside. His reign, once unshakable, now trembled on the brink of collapse. Desperation gnawed at his pride as his sharp gaze fixated on the horizon, searching for salvation where none seemed to exist. Beyond the glittering walls, the Emirates sprawled under the relentless sun, a mosaic of endless golden dunes meeting the azure sky. Within the palace, walls draped in silk, shimmering like liquid gold, absorbed the faint scent of oud and blooming jasmine. Crystal chandeliers scattered prismatic light across ornate carpets. The silence outside the palace gates was a stark contrast to the restless heartbeat of this realm. Inside, the billionaire Sheikh moved like a tempest masked by calm. His eyes, dark as midnight, mirrored the storm raging within, a clash of power and crippling doubt. His sharp jaw clenched, muscles taut beneath the embroidered thobe, bearing the weight of a man who had built kingdoms, but was now haunted by shadows of betrayal and loss. In the humble quarters below, the poor cleaner wiped away dust, not only from polished marble, but from the cracks in the grand facade. Her hands, calloused yet gentle, trembled slightly as she worked, hiding a fortitude forged by hardship. Her emerald eyes, bright as desert stars, observed everything, silent witness to the vulnerabilities no riches could mask. Beneath worn robes lay a fierce spirit wrapped in quiet resilience. The empire's decay was no secret to her. Fate had led her steps through corridors thick with secrets. But today, her lips would part with a truth that could tip the scales. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze found her suddenly. A flicker of curiosity ignited amidst his despair. "Why are you here?" His tone was sharp, laced with disbelief and a hint of restrained anger. She lifted her chin, voice steady though her heart thundered. "I know something that could save you, or shatter what remains." His brows furrowed, skepticism warred with a desperate hunger for hope. In that charged moment, distance dissolved, not between social classes, but between two souls bound by fate's cruel twist. "Speak quickly," he demanded, eyes piercing, "before my empire turns to dust." Her breath hitched as the secret teetered on her tongue, the weight of it heavier than the desert night. "You are not alone in this fight. There is more to your losses than you've been told." Silence swallowed the room, thick and suffocating. Then, with a sudden tilt of her head, she whispered one name, a name tied to betrayal, hidden wealth, and a conspiracy buried deep within the palace walls. The revelation hit like a thunderclap, shattering his carefully built defenses. This was no simple secret. It was a detonator. His pulse raced, hope tangled tightly with dread. As the realization dawned, this woman, dismissed by many, held the key to either his ruin or rescue. Before the next secret of this kingdom is unveiled, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are yet to be forged, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Like if the heart of this sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, from which city do you follow this saga, and what twist do you expect next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep going. Thank you for being with us." The air in the grand hall seemed to thicken even further. The golden sunlight pouring through towering windows, casting long shadows that stretched like silent accusations across the marble floor. The billionaire Sheikh stood motionless. The weight of the secret whispered to him, still burning under his skin. His fingers curled into fists at his sides, the cool silk of his thobe doing nothing to soothe the storm within. In the distance, faint echoes of servants moving hurriedly disturbed the palace's fragile calm. Yet here, inside these walls, shimmering with opulence, time, belt suspended, every heartbeat amplified, every breath a struggle between hope and despair. The woman before him, the cleaner, with eyes like emerald flames, held her gaze steady despite the tempest she had just unleashed. She was no longer just a shadow in the palace corridors, but an unexpected bearer of truths capable of shifting empires. "What exactly do you mean by not alone?" The Sheikh's voice was low, sharp-edged, brandishing a mixture of impatience and urgent curiosity. "Who else stands against me? Or worse, who stands with my enemies?" She took a slow, measured breath. The delicate scent of jasmine seemed to wrap around her, an invisible armor woven from quiet resilience. "Someone within these very walls," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet powerful enough to cut through the heaviest silences. "A hand you once trusted, a shadow that has grown deep and dangerous. They have been siphoning your wealth, sowing discord, turning allies into pawns." His eyes narrowed, the abyss of betrayal opening wider. The empire he had built, thought impregnable, now revealed as a fragile mirage. The countless decisions etched on his memory flashed. Each camaraderie, every alliance, every handshake now cloaked in suspicion. "Name them," he demanded, stepping forward, the embroidered gold threads of his robe catching the light like flickering flames. "No more riddles. This palace has no room for traitors." The cleaner hesitated, the edge of fear flickering across her face, quickly replaced by defiance. "My lips are sealed by more than loyalty or fear. There are forces watching, listening. If my words escape to the wrong ears..." A sudden noise from beyond the door made them both freeze. A servant's hurried footsteps, the faint jingling of keys. The palace felt alive, breathing resentment and danger. The sheikh relaxed slightly, though his gaze never left her. "I will protect you, but in return, you must trust me." Her eyes searched his, the hardness beneath the surface, softening for the briefest moment. Trust was a currency scarcer than gold here. "I have no other choice," she murmured. Outside, the sun dipped lower, staining the vast desert horizon with brushstrokes of burning orange and dusky pink. The shifting colors mirrored the turmoil rippling through the palace chambers. As night threatened to swallow the day, footsteps approached from the corridor. The presence of the sheikh's closest advisor, an imposing figure clad in tailored robes, eyes too calculating for comfort. "Your Highness," the advisor said, voice smooth as silk yet tinged with menace. "The council awaits your decision. The factions grow restless. We cannot afford hesitation." The sheikh's jaw tightened. Every inch of his being rebelled against the chain of command binding him. but the empire demanded obedience, even from its sovereign. "Tell the council I will join them shortly," he said, voice laced with a cold resolve, "and make sure the palace is secured. No further leaks." The advisor bowed deeply, a subtle glint of satisfaction in his eyes, as he disappeared down the labyrinthine halls. Alone once more with the cleaner, the Sheikh's gaze softened imperceptibly. For all the power he wielded, it was this unexpected alliance that shimmered like a fragile oasis in his desolate desert. "Come," he said, turning towards the inner chambers, his voice huskier now, as though bearing the weight of a man willing to gamble everything on a sliver of hope. "Tell me everything." She followed silently, their footsteps swallowed by the lush carpets woven with stories of triumph and treachery. In the dim light of his private study, the atmosphere thickened further. The scent of oud lingered, intertwining with the faint trace of her jasmine perfume. An unspoken blend of worlds, one steeped in power, the other in quiet defiance. "The betrayal runs deep," she began, voice steady but shadowed by the gravity of her confession. "Not just in finances, but in blood ties and old vendettas. The very foundation of your reign is vulnerable." The Sheikh listened, every word chiseling doubt and rage into his heart. "And yet," she continued, "there is a way to turn the tide, but you must understand the cost." He looked up, eyes gleaming with a dangerous spark. "I have paid every cost, and I will pay more if it means saving what is mine." Her silence held a question unspoken. How much of himself was he willing to sacrifice? A sudden knock at the door fractured the fragile moment. The Sheikh's gaze flickered with warning as a messenger bowed deeply, whispering a single name, the name that sent a shiver down the spine of the vast palace. A man thought long buried. The Sheikh's heart clenched. The conspiracy she spoke of were only the first veil. Behind them lurked ghosts from the past, waiting to rise. He met the cleaner's eyes. "Prepare yourself. The true storm is yet to come." Outside, the desert wind howled with the promise of upheaval, and beneath the shimmering palace facade, the empire's secrets began to unravel, thread by dangerous thread. The study felt like a sanctum of secrets, its heavy drapes drawn against the deepening night outside. The air was thick with the mingled scents of oud and jasmine, the faint glow of lanterns casting flickering shadows onto the polished mahogany shelves, stacked with ancient tomes and scrolls. The billionaire Sheikh's gaze remained frozen on the polished floor, the weight of the cleaner's words echoing relentlessly in his mind. His breath came uneven, each exhale a battle between the crushing despair of betrayal and the fierce ember of hope that dared to ignite within his chest. She stood steady beside him, a silhouette of resilience, carved from quiet strength. The room seemed to shrink around them, their worlds colliding across the vast, invisible chasm of palace strata. "Who is this shadow?" he demanded, voice low but sharp, slicing the silence like a finely honed dagger. "Name the traitor who poisons my house." The woman's emerald eyes flickered briefly, the faintest tremor betraying the turmoil beneath her calm facade. "It is not one person, Your Highness," she murmured, voice thick with warning. "A tangled web. Those you once called friends, advisors steeped in greed and old grudges. But there is one above all." The Sheikh's heart tightened. A cold dread curled deep within. The name hovered unspoken between them like a curse. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door creaked, a cautious knock breaking the fragile stillness. Both turned sharply. A courier stepped inside, bowing with practiced elegance that could not mask the urgency burning in his eyes. "Your Highness," he said, offering a sealed parchment. "This just arrived." The Sheikh took the letter with hands that did not quite steady. Breaking the seal, his dark eyes scanned lines filled with threats masked beneath formalities. A veiled declaration that the hidden enemy was moving, and soon. His jaw clenched so tightly the muscles twitched beneath the gold-threaded fabric of his robe. Silence settled again, more oppressive than before. The cleaner, sensing the tempest brewing behind that poised exterior, stepped closer. "There is more," she whispered, voice threading between desperation and courage. "You are being watched, not just for your empire, but for your family. The next move will strike where you are most vulnerable." He closed his eyes, the past rushing in. Echoes of laughter that once graced these walls, the tender presence of those he loved and feared losing most. The image of a woman, radiant and strong, but wrapped in secrets as intricate as the palace's mosaics, flickered in his mind. "Do they know she lives here?" he asked, tone rough with clenched emotion. "Yes," the cleaner nodded, "and they will not stop until every secret is torn open, every bond shattered." A sudden pounding at the door jolted them apart. The Sheikh pivoted swiftly, hand resting on the hilt of a dagger hidden beneath the folds of his robe. A shadow emerged, his trusted advisor, the man whose eyes gleamed with inscrutable intellect and unsettling calm. "Your Highness," the advisor greeted smoothly, voice like velvet laced with steel. "There are rumors stirring in the northern tribes. The Emirate's enemies sense weakness. The palace's gates are ill-guarded. I advise immediate action. Strike first, or fall last." The Sheikh's eyes narrowed coldly. "And you?" he challenged. "Where do your loyalties lie when the palace trembles?" The advisor simply smiled, a shard of something dangerous glinting behind his polished exterior. "With the survival of the Emirate, as always." A tension crackled in the room, a silent battle of wills, more lethal than any sword. Turning away, the Sheikh turned back toward the cleaner. "Tell me everything. I need every truth, every shadow exposed." She hesitated for barely a breath before a torrent poured forth. Names whispered in hushed urgency. Alliances long broken but buried beneath layers of deception. Betrayals sown through generations. As she spoke, the Sheikh felt the cold fury rising. His empire was not merely threatened by external foes, but poisoned from within, roots gnawed away by venomous hands he had once trusted blindly. Through the window, the desert night stretched endlessly, stars glimmering like silent witnesses to the palace's unraveling. A sudden flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure, cloaked in the deep midnight blue of the desert sky, slipped through the shadows beyond the burning orange glow of the outer walls. "Who was that?" the cleaner asked, eyes narrowing. "The beginning," he replied darkly, voice low like distant thunder, "of a war no one could predict." His fingers brushed the cold edge of the desk, the weight of his responsibility crashing over him in waves. The woman watched him carefully, a complex mix of admiration and pity softening her fierce gaze. She saw, beyond the mask of control the Sheikh wore, a man devastated by loss, yet unwilling to surrender. Suddenly, a single word escaped her lips, trembling yet resolute: Amani. The name hit him with the force of a sandstorm, tearing through the desert, a name from a past he had tried to bury beneath the shifting dunes of time. Her secret was deeper, darker than he had imagined, a fragile thread that could either bind them or unravel everything. He closed his eyes, the sting of betrayal sharper now, etched by the memory of promises broken and whispers lost. As the palace held its breath, poised between ruin and redemption, the billionaire Sheikh knew the true battle had only just begun. Outside, the desert wind roared, carrying a warning none could ignore. Some ghosts refused to stay buried, and pending beyond the alabaster gates, a figure stepped forward, a ghost from the past, whose arrival would ignite the fiercest storm yet. The candlelight flickered softly, casting long, wavering shadows across the polished mahogany desk where the billionaire Sheikh sat, his fingers tapping a restless rhythm against the carved edge. The room, drenched in the scent of oud and the faint trace of jasmine, seemed a fragile sanctuary amid the gathering storm. But inside his chest, a tempest raged, one born not of desert winds, but of betrayal and uncertain trust. Her words recoiled against the walls like whispered thunder. "A tangled web," she had said, "and one name above all." Yet despite the weight of that unnamed threat, her emerald eyes met his without flinching. A fire burned in them, equal parts challenge and desperate hope. He rose, the golden threads of his robe shimmering with each movement, the very air around him seeming to crackle with quiet fury. The palace, his kingdom, was no longer a fortress. It was a battlefield steeped in shadows. "Tell me," his voice was low, rough with barely contained anger, "who is this traitor among us? Who dares poison my house from within?" She hesitated, the flicker of doubt betraying her otherwise steady heart. "It is not just one man, Your Highness. But," she swallowed hard, "the greatest betrayal comes from him you once called your closest ally, your advisor, Saeed." The name cut through him like a dagger dipped in ice. Saeed, the man whose polished smile had always masked sharp calculations, whose loyalty had been presumed unyielding. Pain twisted in the depths of the Sheikh's midnight eyes. How many nights had he confided in Saeed, shared his dreams and fears? A sudden knock shattered the heavy silence. The door creaked open to reveal a young messenger, his face pale beneath the flickering light. Without a word, he handed the Sheikh a sealed letter, the weight of its promise urgent and menacing. Breaking the seal, the Sheikh's eyes darted across the parchment. The ink bled threats, dressed in diplomacy, warning that the enemy's web was tightening. The trail was no longer just whispered. It was imminent. Pocketing the letter, he turned back to the woman, his unlikely bearer of truth. "Saeed," he breathed. "Did he poison the loyalty of others? And who else walks this line of treachery?" Her gaze fell briefly, then rose, unwavering once more. "Several, Your Highness. Ministers who sell your secrets for gold, generals whose allegiance wavers. Their influence spreads like wildfire. But Saeed, he pulls the strings." The vast palace seemed to close in around them, the walls bearing witness to centuries of power, now fractured by deceit. Outside, the last threads of sunlight bled into the horizon, staining the desert sea of gold with blood-red hues. "Then Saeed will answer for his treason," the sheikh said, voice resolute, yet laced with a shadow of sorrow. "Prepare the guards. I want no secrets hidden from me." As the woman nodded silently, a sudden sound, soft, deliberate, caught their attention. Footsteps echoing from the hallway, slow and assertive. The sheikh's posture shifted instantly. His instincts, honed by years in the merciless court, flared like desert fire. The door opened again, and Saeed himself stepped in, his facade impeccable, the calm in his eyes chilling. "Your Highness," he greeted smoothly, bowing with the grace of a serpent ready to strike. "A pleasure, as always." The sheikh's gaze burned into him, cold and unforgiving. "Saeed," he intoned, "I have learned much today. Your name is spoken in shadows that twist through my court." A faint smile touched Saeed's lips, but his eyes betrayed no fear, only a calculated patience. "Words are wind, my sheikh. Not all storms seek to drown. Some merely rearrange the sands." Tension thickened the air, the room charged like a powder keg. The woman took a tentative step forward, voice carrying the weight of her courage. "You betray your own blood, Saeed. Your schemes will unravel everything the sheikh has built." An almost imperceptible flicker of surprise crossed Saeed's features before it hardened into disdain. Blood, loyalty, they are luxuries in this world, things bought and sold like everything else. The sheikh's hand clenched at his side, the urge to act immediate and visceral, yet restraint held him. The knowledge that every move now could tip the empire into chaos or salvation. "Enough," the sheikh commanded, voice ringing through the chamber like a judge's gavel. "Tomorrow, in the council hall, you will answer to these accusations. Until then, you will remain under guard." Saeed's gaze did not waver. "As you wish. But beware, my sheikh. Storms do not always obey their masters." With a final icy look, he vanished into the shadows beyond the door, leaving behind a silence thick with impending war. The woman exhaled slowly, exhaustion and relief mingling beneath her measured composure. "You are surrounded by vipers. Trust no one beyond these walls." He looked toward the window, where night had fully arrived, the desert's silver stars glaring down like distant sentinels. In the vastness beyond the palace gates, alliances shifted like the dunes themselves, impossible to predict and deadly to confront unprepared. "My empire has survived countless invasions," he murmured, voice heavy with the weight of legacy and loss. "But the betrayal within, pains deeper than any sword. Her eyes softened, a fragile understanding, bridging their worlds. Then let us be the storm that cleanses the kingdom, not the ruin that buries it. He turned to face her fully, the fiery depths of his gaze momentarily stripped bare. I need you by my side, not as a servant, but as a partner in this fight. Will you stand with me? Her lips curved into a faint, determined smile. Until the last shadow falls. The night outside deepened, the desert wind rising with whispered promises of change. Beyond the palace walls, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Somewhere in the darkness, a figure moved, silent, inevitable. Suddenly, a messenger appeared breathless at the chamber door, clutching a small, ornate box sealed with blood-red wax. The Sheikh's heart hammered violently as he broke the seal and lifted the lid, revealing a delicate dagger decorated with ancient inscriptions and a folded note written in a familiar hand. His breath caught as he read the chilling words scrawled across the parchment. The past never dies. Amani's time has come. A cold shiver raced down his spine. The ghosts, long buried beneath shifting sands, were awakening, and the storm on the horizon promised to consume everything he held dear. The night had swallowed the palace whole, plunging its vast halls into shadows that seemed to crawl along the gilded walls like restless specters. The flicker of candlelight barely held back the dark, casting long, wavering silhouettes across the marble. The billionaire Sheikh sat rigidly behind his imposing desk. The ornate dagger, delivered moments ago in that crimson-sealed box, resting cold and silent before him. His fingers traced the ancient inscriptions, as if seeking answers etched in mystery. But the weight pressing on his heart refused relief. The name Amani echoed in his mind, sharp and relentless. She was not just a ghost of the past. She was a menace that threatened to unravel every fragile thread he had managed to hold together. A sudden soft knock pulled him from his reverie. The emerald-eyed cleaner stepped into the study, hesitation flickering in her gaze as she closed the door behind her. The vast difference in their worlds seemed to dissolve here, replaced by a shared burden heavier than either had ever carried alone. "Sheikh," she murmured, her voice barely breaking the thick silence. "That dagger, it is a symbol, a warning, and an invitation." He looked up, eyes dark pools of storm and fire. "An invitation to what?" "Conflict," she answered, stepping closer. "To confront shadows long buried beneath the palace foundations. Amani's return is not just a matter of old wounds reopening. It's a call for reckoning." He rose abruptly, the weight of his robe shifting like waves of molten gold. The room felt impossibly small now, cramped beneath the siege of memories and fears. "Why now?" His voice was rough, a mixture of wrath and pain. "After all these years, what does she want from me? From us?" She met his gaze unwaveringly, the faint flicker of jasmine scent trailing behind her like a promise. Revenge, power, redemption, who can say? But we know one thing for certain: she will not come alone. Unease coiled in his chest. The palace, with all its shimmering splendor, was vulnerable, an exposed heart beneath layers of silk and stone. "And Saeed?" he demanded, his words hard as desert sand. "Is he still the serpent I must fear?" A bitter smile curved her lips. "Stronger than ever. He weaves his deceit with deadly patience. But even he fears what Amani brings with her, the force that could either destroy or dominate." The sheikh paced beneath the towering walls, the subtle echo of his steps, a lonely drumbeat in the cavernous room. His mind raced, thoughts darting like hawks circling prey. Every alliance now seemed suspect, every whispered promise a potential betrayal. "Prepare the guards," he ordered, voice steeled against the rising storm. "Seal the palace, every corridor and tower. No one enters or leaves without my command." She nodded, a resolute flame behind her vigilant eyes. "We will stand together, Sheikh. The palace may tremble, but we will not fall quietly." A sudden creak interrupted them as the heavy door opened again. A figure cloaked in midnight, sliding inside. With unerring grace, the Sheikh's chief of security, a broad-shouldered man whose loyalty was as unshakable as the desert itself. "Your Highness," the man intoned, voice low and urgent. "Scouts report unusual movements near the eastern dunes. Riders cloaked in black trace our borders. Silent shadows watching and waiting." The Sheikh's jaw tightened, fists clenching the edge of his desk. "Gather the council at dawn. We will need every blade and mind focused." The security chief hesitated, then added, "And one more thing, my lord. There have been sightings of another figure, a woman, not known to us, but bearing the sigil of the old tribes. She moves swiftly, unnoticed, but with purpose." A slow breath escaped the sheikh, the promise of conflict burning hotter than the desert sun. Then the past rides with the present. We brace for a war of secrets and shadows. The cleaner watched him with newfound respect, the glint of resolve hardening into steel. "This is beyond anything we imagined, but in this darkness, our voices must be louder than fear." He turned toward her, the storm in his gaze briefly softening into something more human, fragile, but fiercely alive. "You have stirred a tempest, one I must now command. Tell me, what risks will we face if this war comes to the palace gates?" She stepped forward, the faint tremor in her hands betraying the magnitude of what she was about to confess. "Not just enemies with swords, Sheikh. There are hidden blades, family secrets, betrayals that will poison trust deeper than any dagger." His eyes narrowed, the truth settling like a weight upon his shoulders. "Then I must be ready to lose everything and still fight." A long silence stretched between them, heavy with the unsaid. Outside, the desert wind howled, carrying dust that swirled like ghosts unbound. Suddenly, distant footsteps echoed through the corridor, measured, deliberate. The sheikh's gaze snapped to the door as it creaked open once again. A man stepped inside, cloaked in the shadows of dusk, but unmistakable to the sheikh's sharp eyes. A figure he thought buried beneath the sands of time, alive, poised for retribution. The room seemed to contract, shadows pulling close like fingers waiting to strike. The sheikh drew a slow breath, voice low and resolute as the phantom from his past stepped forward. "This is far from over," he said, every word laced with the weight of empires teetering on the edge. "The storm you evoke is coming for us all." The desert night wrapped the palace in a cloak of silence, broken only by the whisper of shifting sands beyond the alabaster walls. Inside, the billionaire sheikh's private study pulsed with tenseness, every shadow dancing to the tune of the secrets that now threatened to tear his world apart. The delicate dagger lay motionless on the desk, its ancient engravings catching the flicker of candlelight, a silent herald of the storm gathering beyond the palace gates. His gaze, dark and piercing, drifted to the woman standing beside him, her emerald eyes reflecting the fragile thread of hope tangled amid the encroaching despair. Their worlds, one carved from gold and power, the other forged in humble resilience, had collided forever, bound now by truths too dangerous to be ignored. "Tell me everything," the sheikh commanded, his voice a low rumble barely contained beneath layers of force and anguish. "Saeed's betrayal is a wound that cuts deepest, but I need to know who else conspires in the shadows." She hesitated, then exhaled steadily, the scent of jasmine trailing behind her like a promise and a warning. "There are men in the council whose eyes gleam not for loyalty, but for coin. Generals whose swords fall heavy when orders come from the wrong hand. Even the ones closest to you carry hidden daggers, waiting for the right moment to strike." The cold truth crashed upon him like a desert storm. His empire was a mirage defiled by deceit, fragile under the weight of treason he never suspected. He paced slowly, the golden threads of his robes whispering secrets of ancient opulence with every step. Each footfall marked time against the rising tide of paranoia coiling in his chest. How many games had he played, only to realize the players wielded knives behind their backs? "Every corner must be sealed," he said finally. "No whisper shall leave these walls without my command. Saeed will answer for his crimes at dawn. But the others, they must be rooted out before they choke what remains of this kingdom." The woman's gaze hardened. "There's something more. A presence moving unseen amid the palace, a phantom bearing the sigil of old tribes. She brings more than a warning. She carries the power to shatter the fragile peace." A sudden knock at the door shattered the fragile moment. The chief of security swept inside, face grim under the flickering glow. "Dark riders roam near the eastern dunes," he announced, voice low as the desert wind. "They come cloaked in night, watching, waiting." The sheikh's fists clenched the armrest. "Gather the council, every sword, every mind prepared." The chamber seemed to shrink beneath the weight of impending battle, the opulence reduced to a fragile stage for a war of shadows and secrets. The woman stepped closer. "I didn't tell you everything yet. The dagger's arrival is a summons, not only to fight, but to confront the specters of the past. Amani's return is no mere trick of fate." He locked eyes with her, the fire within tempered by the crushing fear of what was to come. "Amani," he whispered, his tone heavy with history and pain. "She was meant to be forgotten, but she never forgot you," the cleaner replied, voice barely above the desert breeze slipping through the narrowed window. "Her vengeance runs deeper than you know, and she will not be alone." His heart thundered in his chest, the walls closing in as the ancient palace, once a fortress of unwavering power, now felt like a gilded cage vulnerable to collapse. A hiss of movement caught his attention, a shadow slipping beyond the threshold of light, silent as a ghost, but heavy with intent. "I must face this head-on," the sheikh said, muscles taut as steel beneath silk. "Gather those I can trust. We fight for every heartbeat of this empire." The woman nodded, lips pressed tight. She had become more than a witness, now a pillar against the encroaching ruin. A whispered sound from the corridor grew louder, a measured step that quickened with each passing second. The door swung open, revealing a figure draped in the dark silk of night, face masked with the weariness of years lost and battles fought in silence. The sheikh's breath hitched. "Amani," he breathed, the name a jagged wound reopening. Her eyes met his, a storm of fury and sorrow, the kindled embers of betrayal glowing like coals beneath her fierce glare. "The past you buried has come to claim you," she said, voice sharp as broken glass. He straightened, the weight of his crown heavier than ever. "Then let the desert winds carry your vengeance. Here I am no longer a man, but the soul of a kingdom." She smiled, bitter, unyielding. "And a soul in torment is the most dangerous weapon of all." Outside, the palace lights flickered, the desert winds howling a mournful song. Inside, their gazes locked, a tempest of unspoken histories swirling between them. The night swallowed their words, leaving only the promise of a reckoning that would bleed through the sands, change the course of empires, and shatter the fragile peace that had so nearly survived. The billionaire sheikh's fingers tightened around the desk's edge, knuckles whitening. The war for his soul, his empire, and the woman who had become his beacon in the storm was only beginning. And in the deep silence that followed, a single whispered vow escaped his lips, dark and unbreakable. This will not be the end. The figure before him was no longer just a phantom of whispered legends. She was flesh and shadow, stepping through the doorway with the deliberate grace of a storm unleashed. Amani's eyes, dark as the desert night, yet ablaze with ancient fury, locked onto his with a silent declaration that the past resonated fiercely in the present. The billionaire sheikh straightened, his chest swelling beneath the golden embroidery of his robe, but inside, his heart was a tumult of dread and defiance. Years of buried anguish surged to the surface as memories he had long tried to bury were dragged into blinding daylight. "This is far from over," he said, voice low but laced with unwavering command. "You return not as a ghost to haunt, but as a force that will shake the very foundations of my reign." Amani's lips curved into a bitter, unreadable smile. "Foundations built on secrets, Sheikh. And secrets always come at a cost." The room between them throbbed with tension so thick it seemed to breathe, the flickering candlelight casting their elongated shadows against the marble pillars like dark oaths etched in stone. Behind her, the heavy folds of night clung to her like armor, fierce, impenetrable. He took a slow step forward, his gaze never wavering. "What do you want, Amani? Is it vengeance, power, or something more personal?" Her eyes shimmered with a storm of conflicting emotions, rage, sorrow, and a spark that no desert drought could extinguish. Justice, she breathed, voice trembling just enough to betray the years of pain she carried. For the betrayals that broke not only me, but the family you swore to protect. The sheikh felt the sting of those words like a lash across his soul. The palace, grand and gilded, suddenly felt colder. Every corridor whispering the names of ghosts past and present. His hands clenched the edges of the ornate desk as the weight of her accusation sank deeper. Sheikh, the emerald-eyed woman who had become his unlikely confidant, spoke softly from the shadows of the corner. Her return is timed with forces you have yet to fully comprehend. Saeed's betrayal was but a thread in a tapestry far darker than either of us dared imagine. He nodded toward her, gratitude and pain entwining in his eyes. Yet his focus remained on Amani. You have your grievances. I do not deny that. But if you seek war, know this: I will defend what remains of my empire with every breath. Amani's gaze hardened, unflinching. Then prepare yourself, because the war I bring is not just for your crown. It is for the truth buried beneath the ashes of your lies. The cleaner moved forward, footsteps soft against the thick carpet, the lingering scent of jasmine weaving through the stifled air. The palace is no longer just a symbol of power. It is a battlefield of shadows. We face enemies who wield secrets sharper than swords. Outside, the distant desert wind whispered through ancient date palms, an echo of the storm brewing within these walls. The great crystal chandeliers trembled as if sensing the tremors shaking the heart of the sheikh's realm. His eyes narrowed, the sharp glint of resolve piercing the cracked veil of uncertainty. Seal every exit. No one enters or leaves without my command. The council will gather at dawn. Those I can trust, at least. It's time the desert saw the fire that refuses to be subdued. Amani's stare flickered, recognition mingling with the challenge in her gaze. This will not be a war of blades alone. There are secrets, darkest of all, that will bleed us dry before the first sword is drawn. The sheikh's breath hitched as if struck by an invisible blow. Tell me. Her voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with weight. Your family, the bloodline you cherish above all, is not as pure as you believed. Betrayal runs in veins older than you imagine, and the true enemy may wear the face of kin. The room seemed to darken even further, the vast tapestries flapping softly in an unseen breeze. The power of her words, sliced like a desert gale, cruel and relentless. A sudden clatter behind the heavy drapes made them both turn sharply. A messenger, breathless and wide-eyed, thrust a sealed envelope into the sheikh's hands. Breaking the wax, his sharp eyes devoured the contents. A letter smudged with dirt, edges singed as if written swiftly across scorching sands. His gaze flickered to the sender's signet, a symbol long thought lost to the past. The name written in elegant script tightened the knot of fear in his chest. Tomorrow, at the oasis of Al-Zahra, he read aloud, voice laced with icy intent. The final reckoning will begin. Come alone, or all you hold dear will be consumed by fire. Amani's lips parted in a slow breath, her usual composure flickering in the shadow of that grave warning. They are baiting you, testing your will, and Saeed's influence has spread further than you know. The Sheikh's fist slammed down on the desk, the ancient wood trembling beneath his grip. "No more games," he hissed. "Tomorrow, the desert will witness whether the Sheikh's blood runs cold or burns with the fury of 1,000 suns." The candle's flame danced wildly, casting erratic shadows that leapt across the walls, as if the palace itself anticipated the storm to come. The room fell silent, sealed in the heavy tension of fates intertwined. His gaze locked onto Amani's, fierce and unrelenting. "The past you thought buried is digging its claws into us both. We are bound, whether by blood or by war." Her eyes shimmered with an unreadable emotion, a blend of longing and loathing. "Then let this night be our last peaceful breath. After dawn, nothing will ever be the same." Outside, the desert sky burned with stars, cold and distant, indifferent witnesses to the unraveling of an empire and the awakening of secrets too dark to escape. The billionaire Sheikh's final words hung in the air, brittle and resolute. "The true storm rides in with the coming dawn, and it will change everything." The room grew colder as the figure of Amani stepped fully into the flickering candlelight, her presence as commanding as the desert's fiercest storm. The billionaire Sheikh's eyes never left hers, the weight of years and wounds threaded between them. Silence. The dagger on the desk gleamed faintly, a silent witness to the gathering tempest that had long simmered beneath polished marble floors and gilded ceilings. "You come back," he said slowly, each word laced with a mixture of accusation and something softer. "Regret or longing, perhaps both. Not as a forgotten shadow, but as a reckoning." Amani's gaze sharpened, flames of anger flickering behind dark eyes. "Your reign was built on betrayal as much as on gold, Sheikh. I am the truth you tried to bury, the consequence you cannot escape." The flickering shadows seemed to stretch between them, a tangible rift torn wide open by secrets too long concealed. The emerald-eyed woman, no longer merely a cleaner, but a steadfast ally, stepped from the shadows without hesitation. Her voice, steady yet charged, broke the thick air. "Sheikh, we stand at a crossroad. Saeed's treachery was but the first blade in this silent war. The palace breathes with conspiracies, whispers of families divided, of loyalties sold." Pain flickered behind the Sheikh's otherwise impenetrable facade. "Those I trusted the most." His voice trembled briefly before stealing. "No more deception. I will uncover the venom dripping in my court." Amani's lips curled into a bitter smile. "And you fear the cost?" He stepped closer, the golden embroidery of his robe catching the candlelight like smoldering embers. "I have faced death, but losing what's left of my soul to these shadows, I will not allow it." Her voice grew quieter, but every word cut through the silence like a knife. "Bloodlines scarred by lies, promises shattered before they were made. The war is not only for power, but for redemption and for revenge." The Sheikh's gaze darkened, the flicker of vulnerability barely hidden beneath his iron will. "What have you come to claim? What is the price I must face?" Before Amani could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor, deliberate, unyielding. The sound drew closer, every measured step charging the air with impending dread. The study door swung open, and a young messenger appeared, breathless, clutching an ornate letter sealed with the emblem of the old tribes. The sheikh took it with steady hands, breaking the wax as shimmering shadows played across the parchment. Reading the message, his jaw clenched tighter than ever. "At Al-Zara Oasis, tomorrow at dawn, alone, or all you hold. Dear will burn." Amani's dark eyes flickered with grim satisfaction. The final reckoning calls. Saeed's network spreads further than you realize. But his poison is only part of a deeper rot. The sheikh crushed the letter in his fist, his knuckles white beneath the silk of his robe. "They believe they can threaten me. They will learn that a sheikh's fury is never extinguished." The ally woman reached out briefly, her hand brushing his sleeve, a quiet gesture amid the storm. "We must prepare, not only for those who wield swords, but for the secrets that will tear us apart from within." He turned his gaze back to Amani, the lines of command and desperation etched deeply across his face. "You say my bloodline is tainted by betrayal older than memory itself. Then I will fight not just this war on the surface, but the war beneath the surface, where trust dies." Amani stepped forward, her voice a bare whisper charged with warning. "If you walk into the oasis unaware, you will fall into a trap not just of steel, but of hearts broken long ago. Your enemies are closer than your own breath." The sheikh swallowed hard, the cold reality sinking in like nightfall over the desert. "Then I will walk into fire with my eyes wide open. For the kingdom, for those I love, even if it consumes me." Outside, the breeze rose, carrying with it dust that swirled like restless phantoms beyond the palace walls. The vast desert seemed to hold its breath, as if knowing that dawn would bring not just light, but a storm to rival the fiercest sands. Suddenly, a subtle movement at the edge of the window caught his sharp gaze. A shadow, fleeting, yet certain, vanishing into the depths beyond the marble pillars. His voice dropped low, raw with menace and resolve. "The past is not done with us, and the true enemy wears faces I never dared suspect." The emerald-eyed woman glanced between them, her expression fierce. "The palace will be tested like never before. But we stand together, whether by choice, duty, or fate." Amani's eyes never left the sheikh's, the silent challenge burning bright. "When the sun rises on Al-Zara, everything will change. Your empire, your heart, your very soul." The sheikh drew a deep breath, the fire in his gaze igniting with cold certainty. "Then let the desert witness. The battle of shadows and blood. I will not cower, I will not fall." For a fleeting moment, the weight of all that had come before seemed to dissolve, leaving only two figures poised on the edge of destiny. One a ruler battered, but unbroken. The other, a force of reckoning forged in desert storms. And as the night closed in, the palace held its secrets tighter, knowing that when dawn's first light touched the sands, the war for the billionaire Sheikh's soul would finally begin in fury and fire. The dawn broke softly over the emirate, a gentle light spilling across the vast desert and stretching into the palace's grand halls, bathing them in a serene golden glow. The air, once thick with tension and whispered threats, now held a fragile calm, a promise of renewal after the longest night. The billionaire Sheikh stood by the window of his private study, gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun met the sands. His silhouette, draped in silks embroidered with gold, carried the weight of a man who had weathered storms no force could undo. Beside him, the woman with emerald eyes, no longer merely a cleaner, but his most trusted ally, stood quietly, her presence a gentle tether to hope. The secrets she had revealed, the battles they had fought together, had forged an unbreakable bond. "My empire was crumbling," he finally said, voice low but steady, echoing the memory of despair. "But it was never without a chance to rise anew, not while there is truth and loyalty left to fight for." She met his gaze, a soft smile curving her lips. "And there is more than loyalty now. There is love, the strength that no betrayal can break." They turned as footsteps echoed from the corridor, steady and deliberate. The council gathered, once fractured by distrust, now united by the Sheikh's unwavering resolve and the courage of those who had stood with him. Faces once shadowed by fear now shone with awakened determination. Said, the serpent who had woven deception into the palace's very fabric, was led into the chamber, guarded yet defiant. His plotted treacheries had unraveled under the combined might of truth and conviction. The Sheikh's cold stare bore into him, the final reckoning drawn in silent command. "You poisoned the roots of this kingdom," the Sheikh said, each word a blade of justice. "But your venom ends here." Said's lips twitched, a bitter acknowledgement of defeat. The empire, once threatened by ruin, now started to breathe again, its pulse returning steadily. Beyond the palace gates, the desert seemed to hold its breath, nature itself witnessing the turning of tides. In the quiet that followed, Amani stepped forward, the ghost from the past who had returned like a desert storm, unrelenting and fierce. Her gaze, fierce but tempered by sorrow, met the Sheikh's with something unspoken, a fragile offer for peace born from shared pain. "You have faced your demons," she whispered, "and your sword has cut through shadow. For that, the past is no longer my chain." A long silence stretched between them, charged with the weight of lost years and newfound understanding. The Sheikh extended a hand, a bridge over the chasms of betrayal and hurt. "Then walk forward with me, not as an enemy, but as a witness to what we can rebuild." Amani's fingers curled around his, tentative at first, then with growing strength. The storm within her eyes softened, replaced by a weary hope mirrored in his own. The palace, once a battlefield, now hummed with the first notes of healing. Later, beneath the vast desert sky, the Sheikh and the woman who had stood at his side found themselves in the palace gardens, a sanctuary where jasmine bloomed, tending to new beginnings. The air was rich with fragrance, a delicate reminder that even amidst hardship, beauty could flourish. Their hands intertwined, the Sheikh's gaze held an unspoken vow to protect not only his empire, but the fragile love that had grown in its shadow. "No secret is too dark," he said softly. "No betrayal too deep, that love cannot illuminate the path forward." She rested her head against his shoulder, eyes closed as the first warm rays of sun kissed their skin. Around them, the palace awoke, its halls filled now with laughter instead of suspicion, with promises instead of threats. The emirate, scarred yet unbroken, began to bloom anew, a testament to resilience, to forgiveness, and to a love forged by fire and tempered by truth. In that moment, beneath the endless sky, the billionaire sheikh and his companion saw not an empire threatened, but a future won, radiant, hopeful, and theirs to build together.